WolfPunch.
So that was my impression of the Night King. I hope you guys liked it.
Oh, I got that. For a second there, I thought you meant that Disturbed sound.
That would be sweet.
Alright, let's all do our impression of the Night King. Never mind. This isn't good radio.
That was funny.
Hey everyone, it's WolfPunch Podcast.
DireWolfPunch.
DireWolfPunch. I'm Yezin. IRL. Yezin. There's Kyle.
The boy
Kyle,
who
say
was
something.
wrong. Yeah.
I was wrong.
Yeah.
Bran did not burn King's Landing. It's fine. I'm not.
Hey, there's
upset
still
about
a couple more episodes.
He won't.
Maybe he will for fun. Quit pointing at me. I said stuff.
I'm Michael Kemp.
I'm Dan. Hi.
Tonight we're talking about the Long Night. Last night's long episode of Game of Thrones. The big, long White Walker battle.
Yeah.
The
One
epic
big battle.
The conflict of epic proportion.
The incredibly hyped episode, which kind of just feels like everything after this. A lot of people are kind of like, oh no, what's the point that this is taken care of?
A little bit.
To an extent, yeah.
I get the premise of, like, going in, I was never a fan of the idea of ending the White Walker conflict in the North because, I mean, everyone knows this is spoilers. This is spoilers. I was never a fan of ending the White Walker conflict in the North, but seeing the build up to it and seeing about the first 10 minutes of it, I got it. I was like, okay, I don't want to see three episodes of this. I don't want, like, they're doing all they can do with zombie battle.
Yeah, well, honestly, it just proved to me, like, I've never been a fan of the White Walker, like, as a concept in the Game of Thrones universe. Like, that's not why I watch Game of Thrones. I'll watch Walking Dead if I want to see zombie bullshit. So this episode, I'm glad that it's done with. I mean, I'm more excited for the King's Landing shit.
Yeah, it's always kind of been that, like, looming sort of, like, existential threat that's in the background, you know, sort of like their version of global warming, except in this one it's just global zombie cooling that they've had to deal with. And it's worked best in small doses. I feel like when Hard Home just, like, suddenly happened and you weren't expecting it, then all of a sudden you have this crazy shit just, like, popping off, and you're like, wow, that was ridiculous and unexpected. And so it's kind of just inevitable, the trajectory of how everything's set up, that this has to come to a head in some way, shape, or form. And it did.
Yeah. Because, I mean, that's the thing. Like, I liked the White Walkers as, like, it's interesting to see, like, someone like Jon try and say, hey, like, there's an army of the dead coming, and people look at him like, you're fucking an idiot. What are you talking about?
Yeah, fuck off, Al Gore.
And it's like that's interesting. Like, that tells, but like you said, it's inevitable that eventually they have to show up, but, like...
I mean, yeah, even, like, back to, like, that South Park episode, like, making fun of Game of Thrones, where they're like, oh, we were promised, like, zombie action and dragons, where are they? And it's kind of like that long-standing promise they have to fulfill to, like, everyone who was just kind of like, oh my god, this shit's gonna get crazy, because they're just kind of bored by political machinations and whatnot.
Yeah, see, like, I mean, God, especially after this episode, I really do feel like, yeah, they should have just never done White Walkers on this show. Because, I mean, the political intrigue and, like, all of the different warring factions was always more interesting.
Yeah.
But once you, like, get to a point where you're, like Hard Home is a fucking great episode. I love it. Once you, like, just accept, yeah, the White Walkers are going to be a thing, you assume that's going to be the big end game of this whole show. It's going to be the big major event. And then the fact that it isn't is kind of like, well, what was...
Like, it is and it isn't. It tries to be, like... It basically is trying to be, like, a Hollywood fantasy war movie. It's trying to be like Lord of the Rings, basically.
Yeah.
Like, match it in scope, you know, budget, setting, all that. Like, CGI effects, just grandiose scale for everything. And to an extent, it manages to do that decently well. But a lot of the issue is it feels out of place for Game of Thrones.
It feels out of place for Game of Thrones. I think that, like... This just feels like a longer episode of, like, Game of Thrones battles that we've seen before.
Yeah.
Yeah, to an extent.
There are cool parts.
I had flashbacks to Battle of the Bastards.
Sure. And then I had some flashbacks that I didn't feel good about. I mean, there was literally like a World War Z moment in this episode.
That was very heavy. Well, I mean, I think we all have umbrage with how the episode ended, but we'll get to that at this point. not counting that, taking that into effect, how do you guys feel about like just the battle in general and how it was structured and how it took place?
I think they did an alright job of like keeping interest, like flashing from character to character, but there were like lulls where like they were just showing people getting attacked. Like I think the high point was probably like when Arya was like playing Metal Gear Solid in the castle.
Library.
Yeah. Like that was fun.
Not Resident Evil, Metal Gear Solid.
I've never played Resident Evil, so
Okay.
So and sorry in advance, I'm coughing, so you're going to hear that a lot. I think that this is going to be a theme tonight. I'm going to be taking a lot of umbrage with Benioff and Weiss. I think Miguel Sapochnik is a very good director. I don't think that the problem in this battle was necessarily that. I think the issue, and not that one of you guys was suggesting that, I think the issue is that there isn't enough material in this episode to write a really good battle sequence around it. Like, not enough... there aren't enough impactful events actually happening. Like, the beginning of the battle is actually a lot of fun. You watch these Dothraki sort of march off or ride off into the night, and then all their lights go out. So, like, there's this really cool... And they say it... in the inside of the episode, they kind of... This is one of the few things they said got right. They said that, like, there's like a moment where Melisandre shows up and she gives everyone hope, and then it goes away. So there's a good ebb and flow there at the beginning. And, when Grey Worm is kind of holding the... What's that called? The formation.
yeah.
That stuff is really good. But then...
Phalanx,
thank you. Everyone kind of goes back into the castle, and that's a fine idea, but it just sort of falls apart.
Yeah, see, I mean, I don't entirely disagree with you. I do think, like, ultimately the biggest problem is not enough eventful moments happened to warrant this 82-minute span, but I don't know how much I want to praise the director. Like, there are moments of the episode that are really cool, and then there are a lot of them that, like, I found underwhelming, disappointing, and annoying. There was a lot of, like, shaky cam moments that I just absolutely hated. Shaky cam is something that I never, ever liked. Well, almost never. And, like, I remember saying, like, I got really tired of, like, it's a tried and true Game of Thrones formulaic thing of somebody's about to get killed and then their friend saves them at the last second. And I bitched about that in it, and then, Michael, you said, but that's, like, the way people can only be saved at the last second.
Yeah.
Like, we just have to accept this and, like, just write it differently.
Well, no, I mean, it's like saying it's in the last place I looked. Like, of course someone's going to be saved at the last second. You can't be saved...
If you don't need saved. Yeah, I understand that. Just don't write that. Because, like, so many side characters in this episode, all it is, like, you've got, like, Brienne and Tormund and Jaime and stuff, and all of their lines of dialogue are, come on! And fall back! And, like, and then they're just, like, they almost get killed and they get knocked over, and then somebody saves them at the last second.
Oh, yeah.
And then that happens 11 more times, and then Sam lays on the ground stabbing fatly while being crying. And
Again,
I'm like, just chop it all out, because if you've seen it before and then you do it like 5 times for each character per episode, doesn't warrant 82 minutes.
Again, I don't think that's... The problem is that, again, that comes back to the lack of material. Like, watching people get saved wouldn't have gotten so tiresome if once in a while someone didn't get saved.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I'm saying.
Yeah, so it's like the issue... so maybe we agree, we're just saying it differently. The issue isn't that people kept getting saved. The issue is that people kept getting saved.
That's what I mean.
Well,
Yeah.
I think you said earlier something that, like, for a show that's, like...
For a show that is known for killing off characters... And again, I'm not trying to be like, yeah, ruthlessness, death is cool, but, like, for a show that's known for killing off its characters, they just got to the big climax. And a lot of people say, a lot of people are sort of like making the rounds on the internet saying, no, this has always been about the human conflicts. And, like, that's not entirely wrong. It's just that, like, this next is the scouring is like the last stand. This was the climax. Climax, last stand. Blackgate, scouring of the Shire. Essentially, that's the way it's structured. And for a show that's known for killing off its characters, they didn't kill off much of anyone.
No, we called pretty much all of these deaths. We called pretty much all of these deaths like a week before. Except you guys threw around names like Podrick, where I was like, "There's no way Podrick's gonna die."
But he's never been shown as like a good knight.
It's one of those
and
things
this is
of
the
like
army of the dead.
pretty much. D&D basically admitted this in their after episode recap. Is after a certain point they just let the fans write their show for them.
Well, they didn't. It's true they didn't admit that.
They basically say it. We'll talk about that when we talk about the ending. But, I mean, so Podrick is just like one of those, like, basically a meme character where everyone's like, Podrick, he's funny. He's great. We love him. Even though he doesn't do anything. Yeah. He's just amazing because.
Yeah.
So I'm like, yeah, they're not going to kill him because they don't need to. It doesn't really have any dramatic weight other than...
I thought it would have dramatic weight for Bran. I don't know.
Yeah, maybe.
Maybe.
But she's busy.
If anything, it would be Bran and Podrick that finally have to, like, step up.
I thought that again. I thought there would be a few more deaths. I think that I'm just going to say. I think this episode needed to like kill off a big character.
It definitely did.
Like I feel like it needed to kill off for the length and the hype. It needed to kill off like at least 2 main characters. At least.
Maybe at least like I think like a Jaime tier character.
Yeah.
Ideally Jaime.
Mm-hmm.
I know that people have expectations for him going back to King's Landing, and that's fine. But if not him, then someone. Like...
Brienne.
I don't think Brienne is Jaime tier. I think you need, like...
In the fans' eye, she
In the fans' eye... in some fans' eye.
Yeah.
But I think, like, people have a general understanding, even the ones that really like Brienne.
Well, I mean...
have a general understanding that Brienne is not...
Yeah.
To be fair, when you watch this episode, you become very, very aware of fan influence of like Bran. Maybe she's not Jaime tier, but I mean she's close. But when you're watching this, you're like, well, who are fan favorite characters? Brienne, Jaime, Tormund, Grey Worm. They're basically all the same level now because they get like the same amount of screen time and they have like the same amount of effect on the plot. Where it's just them saying the audience likes these characters. They're cool. We'll focus on them a little bit, and nothing bad will happen to them. But you'll worry about them. And then you're just like, what? Look, and again, the point isn't that we're not just bloodthirsty, though admittedly I am very much. But it's like, because this has been hyped up since the very first episode of this show, well, I don't think that the White Walkers has ever been any of our favorite aspect of this program.
I actually like it a lot. I think it has a lot of... It's not my favorite, but I think there's a lot of potential that didn't get used.
Sure, exactly. Like, it's... Whether it's your favorite part of this program or not, it's because there's been so much build-up, and then even when you just know, like, okay, this is going to be like an 82-minute battle episode, you really expect them to deliver more than they did.
It seems like there's quite a bit of lack of consequence for the actions that happen.
Yeah,
Like, yeah, Winterfell's kind of wrecked, but, like, basically everyone that died are just, like, nameless, like, extras and stuff. There's, like, 3 character deaths, and no one cares about them anyways, that whole bunch.
I mean, you just have to look at the scene where Jon's dragon crashes, and he's running towards the Night King, and then the Night King begins to revive, like, fallen...
Everyone that was killed in battle.
Yeah, northern soldiers. And somehow Jon still makes it past them.
What's frustrating about that is because, like, you see how it's framed, you see how it's blocked and everything, how it's shot, and, like, he's completely surrounded on all sides, you know? And I actually like the build-up to it because it, like, kind of gives that moment where he could almost make the Night King, but he still seems too far.
Same, I think it's a cool visual.
It's a great concept, like, in hand, and it's got some good tension to it. The issue is he's completely fucked and surrounded by all sides by, like, the whites now.
Which has happened to him before, and nothing ever,
multiple times, and it's just the same old, like, tired shit, where, like, he'll slash at a couple, and then, like, Dragon's Breath or something will come down, and he'll be fine to run off and, like, fuck around for a little bit until the plot decides they want to, like, focus on him for a second.
Exactly, and even that, like, concept could have been really fucking cool if they had, like, killed characters that we actually cared about, because, like, when you're watching that, there is something, like, kind of, almost offensive and, like, bastardized, and it would almost connect you in an emotional way when you're watching, like, we're already in spoilers, we're spoiling everything, who gives a shit, but it's like when Ed opens his eyes again, or like for people that actually give a shit about the little Mormon girl, like her opening her eyes again. Imagine if like a character who was actually important was already dead and then came back as a zombie,
Like,
That would
imagine
really
if in the
fuck people
crypts,
up.
like, Sansa had to confront, like, you know, Catelyn Stark down there or something, and, like...
I didn't like that bit, though.
I was thinking, I was thinking,
the concept of
Yeah,
it.
the concept is, like, if they would have killed somebody...
my thought was,
important-
like, I mean, he isn't necessarily super important. My thought was, like, kill off Gendry. Make Arya confront that.
Oh, God, fuck Henry. Yeah, like...
Yeah, I see, but I knew they weren't going to kill... Like, Michael pretty much cemented it when he pointed out, like, they reiterated that he's a Baratheon. I'm like, yeah, Gendry's not going to die.
So many houses have fucking turned to shreds that I thought it would be fine that they could do it.
Yeah, I just... Again, the fans are writing the show now. It's just not... It's not going to that.
Again,
Yeah.
I thought that the reason Gendry was there was for that reason.
I had hoped.
To die for pathos for Arya. Having him there to restore House Baratheon is actually really uninteresting.
It doesn't... The point isn't whether or not he does or doesn't do that. It's just one of those things that fans can be like, ha, there's another Stark and Baratheon union here, though. That's cool.
They already
doesn't
fucked.
actually...
She can have a baby later. It's fine. I don't know.
I'm
You're
just saying.
right. I'm right. We're both right.
Yeah, but neither of us are happy. So,
Yeah.
and that's Game of Thrones.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know. Like, as you mentioned the filmmaking before and, like, the craft of the episode, and I got to admit, I'm really torn on a lot of it because it seems like segments of it are really well
There
done.
are very cool parts.
But a lot of it, like, I mean, I'm not sure, maybe it was just, like, the angle I was sitting on the TV or something. A lot of it just, like, felt dark and, like, muddy.
Yeah, it
like,
did.
Solo level, like, in theaters,
Yeah.
kind of.
The dragon fighting was all kind of a turd out there.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, like, especially because like, you even questioned when we were watching, it's like, oh, did they just kill, like, the ice zombie dragon? And they're like, yeah, they ripped its fucking head off, it's dead. And then it, like, comes back and is breathing fire again all over the place. You're like,
Oh, yeah.
okay.
Like, we all thought it was dead.
Like, I would say, like, the Dothraki, their flames going up, that was sick.
Yeah. Yeah.
And I thought that, like, Arya in the haunted house was pretty cool, because it's, again, like, something that I can
It changes up the tone, it changes up the pace a little bit, it gives you some time to breathe, and, like, makes true on the promise of, like, horror in this instead of just battle.
And I wanted more of that.
Again, see, that's why I'm not saying Miguel Sapochnik is the best. I'm just saying that, like, that's the reason why I don't fault him, because I noticed that the things that are good are the things that are written to be good. Like, what if the Dothraki all charge out and then their lights all go out? That's really interesting. What if Arya is in a like a fucking haunted zombie-ridden library? That's interesting. But then when they give him, like, our characters surrounded by zombies, fighting them off, 20 minutes, just like Tormund on a pile of bodies. Like,
yeah, it seemed like
he's got nothing to work
See,
with.
I don't know what else this director has done, but I'm also sure that the script probably didn't say shaky cam, poor lighting, no idea what's happening.
I mean, how are we into good lighting?
Again, here's the thing, though. Because of the bad lighting, there were, and I've seen this on the internet, a lot of people were confused. There were times I thought characters did die. I was like, oh, there was a time I thought Jaime was dead.
There were moments that looked like characters, like, it was annoying because there were moments where it looked like, okay, so in this situation, obviously this character should die. But then I knew, like, yeah, but they're not.
Well, yeah, there's a lot of times like that. When, like, Jaime and Brienne especially, they're, like, on, like, the ramparts, and they're, like, being thrust against the wall, and there's, like, just zombies literally all over them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's like, they should be dead immediately. But instead, I guess they were just fighting them off for 50 minutes straight, or however much long time actually passed in this episode.
How the fuck did Sam not die?
Yeah.
He was laying down the entire episode crying and just, like, fatly stabbing at people that are already down.
Yeah, that was stupid as shit.
Oh, yeah.
And, I mean, a part of that is just kind of, like, your limitations of, like, what you're able to do with the characters and trying to, like, make it I don't have an answer if I think it's good filmmaking or if it's bad. Like, you can argue that, like, oh, it's dark out because it's supposed to be muddy, chaotic. They're not supposed to know what's going on. You're supposed to kind of be, like, POV'd in that situation. But at the same time...
It's not entertaining for 82 minutes.
It's not entertaining for 82 minutes in some regards. And there's also the whole thing where it's like, you think this character died, you know, that's really important, but the only way you can really know that is by, like, you know, the meta-narrative of being like, it did make a big deal out of it, so it didn't happen.
Yeah. See, and that's part of why, like, I disagree with, like, some of the, like, ebbs and flows of sometimes you think there's hope and then sometimes you don't. I'm like, no, you're aware of, like, the runtime of a television episode. So, like, there are the moments of hope that you're watching, you're like, this is all going to turn around really quick.
Yeah.
I'm not faulting them for doing that. Obviously, you don't want your entire battle mini-movie to be all one tone. You want there to be, like, moments of advancement and retreat. But
It would work if in the moments of retreat, something
cataclysmic happened, yeah.
I would say permanent. Like, a character dies or a character gets their leg chopped off. Now they have one leg.
Yeah.
Well, I mean,
Or if this was still season 1, I was talking to Dan about this earlier, or if this was still season 1 where injuries mattered. Like,
Yeah.
I saw this on a
cool.
Reddit post where, like, in season 1, Ned Stark gets stabbed in the knee. He uses a cane the rest of his life.
Yeah.
The rest of the season he uses a cane.
God, I was just talking to somebody
this-
about this not that long ago, where like Catelyn, when the cat spotter comes
yeah.
and like her hands, I think I might have been talking to you or somebody, where I was like always annoyed by how people cut their hands in movies. I was like, Game of Thrones is like the only time I've ever seen somebody get their hands deeply cut and then like their hands are fucked for at least a few episodes.
Yeah. In this, like, everyone should be so fucked. Jon is on a dragon that crashes and then he falls off of it and he's like, fine, gonna go fight an army of zombies right now.
Well,
It's
like that was like the one of the pretty early in the battle. I remember Bran getting like jumped on by a bunch of zombies, and I was like, oh fuck, either A, she's dead, or B, like she has to be like just wrecked, and she was fighting fine the whole episode.
But go on.
it succumbs too much to the whole Hollywood grandiose spectacle of like battle over anything else, because like we've been really negative on this, but like overall I still enjoyed this episode quite a bit, like until the ending that we'll get to.
Yeah.
But as far as like being a Game of Thrones sort of battle episode, that's where I'm kind of like, yeah, I love this shit, it doesn't hold water.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many different instances of like that kind of shit happening. Like just the fucking little Mormont girl. Like I think even said is like, yeah, she would just die instantly. And it's like, yeah, she does die in the episode, but it's like she gets sideswiped by a giant immediately. If this was like a shred of anything like the books, like she would be paralyzed if she's still alive. The only thing she could probably do would be like cough up bits of her lung. But no, she has to have her little fucking fanboy moment where she gets picked up and kills a giant because
Which is...
Been there, done that.
Again, I don't want to be like... I don't want to be like nitpicking logistics too much because there are bigger things that bother me. But like,
Yeah, we'll get to them though.
yeah,
Yeah.
we'll get to them. But like, yeah, the Lyanna Mormont thing. Like, why would the giant lift her up to his head?
I don't know, to
It's like
let her stab him.
It made it seem like the giant was gonna eat her, and I'm like, he's a zombie. He doesn't eat children.
It did seem like that for a second, and part of me like really hoped. I was like, is he gonna bite this little girl's head off?
that would have been sick.
I was
actually.
like, is this shit about to take a fucking turn?
Yeah, I thought that would have been great, but like that's the thing, like all it is, and they say it in the inside. I've heard a lot of people talk about how the inside of the episode is frustrating to listen to.
Oh, yeah,
this
I
is the
hate
most I've ever felt it.
Well, see, I've always been annoyed where I was like, oh, they're just explaining what we already know because they're aware that some people are stupid. And then when they watch this and they're like, yeah, Lyanna Mormont was supposed to be a one-scene character, but now that we let the fans write our show for us, we knew that we had to give her an awesome death.
Yeah.
And I'm like, thanks,
Very
guys.
cool.
Very cool. And I'm like, God damn it.
Yeah.
And, Dan, you're right. Like, this isn't terrible. I honestly, personally, did not enjoy it while I was watching it, but it's not terrible. It's just because this is Game of Thrones, and this is the reason why we got into this show, is like, this was a world of fantasy that introduced consequences.
Yeah.
And it introduced, like, shocking deaths. And then you're like, now they're going to do an 82-minute battle of Lord of the Rings proportion? That's going to be like nothing we've ever seen before. And you're like, I've seen better battle episodes.
Lord of the Rings did it better.
Yeah, I mean, and there is the DNA to have a great episode in this. Like, especially, I would even say, like, the first third of the episode I thought was really good with, like, escalating, like, the whole battle and the stakes for everything that happens, how...
Yeah. Should use the dragons in the first place, but, what do you
Again, the ebbs and flows, but they even do an okay job of explaining away why the dragons aren't just popping up every 2 minutes
That's
to
true,
save the
they
day.
do.
Like, there is some thought and care that, like, really works on certain levels. And there's even aspects towards the end that I think, like, do a good job of what they're trying to do. Like, I know I said it as a fucking joke almost. They're like, oh, hey, the zombies are going to pop out of the crypts and they're going to have to fight those off. And you guys, like, scoffed and like, that never happened. They're all dead, decayed.
Yeah,
I just thought that was just...
Yeah, like, I had heard that a bunch, and I was like, one, that's dumb.
That's
and then
ridiculous.
Two,
Like,
it is.
they're all a bunch of dusty bones, and they gotta open, like, marble stone. And then, when they had that moment where, like, Tyrion and Sansa were like, guess we can't do anything, we're useless, I was like, fuck. That means they're gonna have to do something in the episode, because they can't just have two of their main characters admit that they're useless without giving them a moment.
honestly, I kind of disagree with that. Not that it didn't... I don't think they they didn't do anything.
They did enough for, like, if you're a Tyrion fan, you're like, why didn't Tyrion mix it up with the White Walkers? It's like, one of those guys, a little dagger, and then he gets to. And he helps save the women and children in the crypt. And I'm like,
didn't do a really good job.
I think that was fine. No. I didn't like the idea of having zombies come. I actually thought that was fine because to me it was more of a moment of helplessness. It wasn't. That didn't seem like fan service at all. To me, that was the opposite of fan service. It highlighted their helplessness, not.
I disagree. I think it's like, how can they be helpless but still look cool with some dignity?
Really, I didn't think they looked cool.
I mean, I don't think they look. I think they looked kind of resolute, but I don't know if it. Again, I think that worked for me. I guess where I'll go.
Maybe I just hate this show more than you guys.
No, it's not. They're.
The thing is, there's things you're able to excuse to an extent.
I guess.
And, I mean, again, we keep talking, but we're going to get there really soon. But a lot of those things were issues that, like, yeah, I can kind of, like, overlook this because it's like, this series has changed over time and it is becoming more of a TV series than it is, like, an adaptation of the source material and try to stay true to that. Like, I can even easily forgive, like, the zombies in the crypt if it had more consequence, because it's building towards that point where everything is totally hopeless and it seems like things are completely fucked. And that's kind of like the whole point of setting it up and where they want to go. Like, literally, no one's going to make it out okay. Like, everyone's up against the wall and about to die. And, like, yeah, I like that as a concept, but the issue with that is they just pull out a Deus Ex Machina and then say fuck it.
Yeah, I mean, like, zombies in the crypt would have been fine if you killed a character.
Oh, yeah.
They didn't kill a single character.
Yeah. Especially, like, you're getting taken by surprise. None of them really have weapons.
Yeah.
Like...
There were some cool moments of, like, carnage down there in the crypt.
Yeah.
The lady getting dragged. Something that I'll say. Like, I think we said this about Shazam, but, like, it's actually true here. A lot of things just kind of go on longer than they should and kind of wear out their novelty in this episode.
Oh, yeah, for sure. I was wondering how you were going to relate this to Shazam. You did well.
Well, Arya's in both of them. Not really, but she looks like the kid.
Like,
so Melisandre, for example, I actually like Melisandre showing up and like lighting all the Dothraki Airlocks was awesome.
Yeah.
Then when she was chanting to light the trench, I was just like, okay, this is not.
I actually liked that part because it like built attention because you're like, for a second I was like, is the Lord of Light like fucking her right now? Is like. She just like, is it not gonna...
It was nice. Okay, that's creepy. But it was cool to see Melisandre like actually lose her cool a bit and almost like question.
I've seen Melisandre lose her cool though. When Jon was dead and Stannis was dead.
I liked that.
My issue with it was... Yeah, honestly, I think there was like a weird like Melisandre thing in this episode where it felt like they were patting themselves on the back for doing more with that character than they actually did.
Yeah.
Like, she shows up at the beginning like, oh, shit. Okay, I'm not... Full disclosure. There was a rumor going around that Melisandre was going to raise zombies of her own with fire. So I thought, holy shit, what if that happened? That would be sweet. Like, zombies fighting zombies, but zombies on fire. Didn't happen. So I guess I'm let down. Because, like... Melisandre like grabbing the Erics and like lighting them, that was cool. Then when she's lighting the trench, like, so is she just gonna like light shit on fire?
She's a human Zippo.
Like, and then, like the chanting and like you knew it was gonna light at the last second. Like it just it wasn't great. And then like when you find out what Melisandre is really there for in the episode. It just becomes very...
Yeah. Well, I think, like, again, like, the trench part would be better if there were consequences. Because, I mean, yeah, I for a second thought, like, oh, maybe it's not going to light. But, like,
maybe she's going to get killed before she can do it.
Because no one else has died, like... Again, like, everything's kids' gloves now.
Well, again, I don't feel like that's really the purpose of the whole trench thing. It's just kind of there to, like, serve for the pacing of the film. To give things, a bit of a moment, like, of a respite. And again, so come back to, like, they still think they might have control of the situation.
Yeah. Well, in retrospect, that's how I see it. But at watching at the time, I thought, like, oh, maybe, like, this is it for Melisandre. But...
I didn't...
Like, of all the things that I wish there were more consequences for happening, that's pretty far on, like, the back of the list on that one. Like, it would have been nice to see, like, something happen. But, I mean, again, like, There's
bigger
a
fish.
lot to cover, and there's a lot bigger fish to fry.
Melisandre, again, Melisandre's not a character that again, we're spoiling, so like Melisandre dies, but and she doesn't even really get killed. She dies.
Yeah.
But Melisandre is not a character that anyone is disappointed at her death.
Yeah, I kind of just forgot about her before this, honestly.
She because we're talking about major deaths. I don't even count. I barely count Melisandre because she's not only a character that has no positive relationship to any protagonist, but also she's a character that has announced that she is going to die in the White Walker battle last season and at the beginning of this season. So it's it almost doesn't count.
Yeah. I mean, honestly, I think during the episode I asked, where has she been? I thought, I forgot that she was a person.
Yeah. That's kind of where I was, too.
It's what?
So, before we, make our way to the ending, I think we should talk about Jon and Daenerys in this episode. Particularly.
Yeah.
A lot of people right now are, really upset. I'm not for the same reasons.
Yeah.
A lot of people are really upset because there's this whole Azor Ahai, Prince That Was Promised prophecy that everyone was really in on, and they were like, well, I want to see Jon and Daenerys do something really cool in this battle. But when you actually watch this, Jon and Daenerys feel very...
They're caught off guard almost. They're
that
fumbling
caught
a
off
lot.
guard is fine. They seem just after as soon as the part where the dead get inside, as soon as they're not stopping the dead from advancing to Winterfell, Jon and Daenerys feel weirdly irrelevant. They're just kind of flying around lost in a storm, looking for this.
Which it's shocking how irrelevant Jon is when this has basically just been what his whole story has been leading up to.
Yeah.
He's everybody know about the White Walkers, you're coming, and then they're there, and he's lost.
Yeah, he's lost. Him and Daenerys are just lost the whole episode. And it's just I mean, I'm not a huge fan of either character. Jon has won me over a lot the last couple seasons, just because it they forced.
They forced
Jon forced himself on you. You learned to love him.
Yeah.
Yikes.
Anyway. But it's just they were just almost laughable. There were a couple scenes with Daenerys where she was lost. So I'm what are you even doing?
So I'm not a person that needs my heroes to be really badass and do really awesome things. But I do think that there is an element of actually particularly with Jon, because Daenerys does defeat the White Walker dragon. Basically, her and Drogon do defeat on Viserion, but Jon kind of just fuddles around the battle. He flies around a bunch. Daenerys, he's what do we have to wait? Daenerys is no, that's a shitty idea. We have to burn the zombies. And then they go burn the zombies. And then
To be fair, Jon does yell at a dragon. So.
Yeah.
I didn't mind that. We'll get to that.
It was dumb.
You really didn't like it.
Yeah, John's sort of just I didn't want or need to see Jon with a flaming sword fighting the Night King, but
it would have been nice to see him serve more of a purpose in this episode.
Yeah, it would have been nice to see him serve a purpose.
I'm
not. It's weird we're saying so much don't do fan service, but it's I'm kind of surprised how much of a fuck you to fans of Jon this episode.
Yeah, but I mean, we're all pretty anti-pandering, but once we talk about the grand finale, it's going to make more sense in context.
Well, I don't think there's a difference between pandering and writing a good story.
Yeah.
Write a story where your characters do things of consequence that you care about. And again, they're subverting expectations. Oh, Jon doesn't do I could get behind a story where it's you thought things were going to go one way, but here's an alternative take. But if you're doing something interesting.
Yeah,
having him and Daenerys just fly around lost isn't interesting.
It's basically if Return of the Jedi, the entire time Luke was I've got to go fight my father. I've got to confront him. And then Lando fucking fires a blast into the Death Star that sucks Vader into space first. You're oh, well, what was all that about?
Yeah.
That's weird.
Have something interesting to say. And that's kind of where this episode lost me.
So I brought up the Jon and Daenerys thing. This might be one of probably the thing I brought up that bothers me the least.
Same. But you brought it up.
Yeah. I I do think it's. I think the idea, the underlying idea of this episode is that they're all facing death and they're all kind of like in over their heads, except Bran for some reason. Everyone is sort of in over their heads, and I think that's okay.
Yeah,
and,
because I mean, you should be if you're fighting World War Z.
Yeah.
Zombies.
So I was just mainly like again, Daenerys does get the win on that dragon. I was mainly surprised that they didn't do much of anything with Jon. He really just kind of doesn't even get to fight the doesn't get to do that much, which is odd.
He doesn't even really lead at all in this episode. He's supposed to be like, the Warden of the North and all this shit, and she doesn't.
Yeah, no one's really leading the army. Davos, I think, is doing the most leading.
Yeah. Davos barks out a few orders, and that's about it.
Davos,
Grey Worm, and Brienne. And to be honest, I
Jorah a little bit.
Yeah, Jorah led the Dothraki, Brienne led the Northmen and Vale Knights, and Grey Worm lives in. Grey Worm is fucking cool.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be honest. It's weird that they kind of stopped showing him after a little while, but I think Grey Worm is just
they kept cutting back to him in the battlements with everyone else.
It was hard to see. He was wearing a helmet, but
headed off by the end.
Whatever. I think Grey Worm is cool.
Yeah.
I think Grey Worm was cool in this episode. He's one of the few characters I have no complaints with what they did with Grey Worm.
Yeah.
Me neither. I mean, technically, I have no complaints with what they did with Jorah either. It's not that big of a deal.
Yeah. Here's the thing.
And I like Jorah a lot.
It's weird. I don't like Jorah, but I mean, I don't dislike Jorah. I don't care about Jorah.
Yeah.
You like Jorah.
Yeah.
Jorah, the way his episode kind of ends is actually pretty.
It's just solid.
It's solid.
It's one of the most solid parts of this.
But I was
episode.
also pretty positive that he was going to die because he had his nice little moment last episode, and he's not important.
It was a thing where, again, watching this episode, it was like, I think one reason why I enjoyed it is I kept expecting, it's like, oh, now it's about to get real.
Yes,
and it never got real.
Same.
Until it's like Jorah is like one of the deaths I expected early in the episode. Like the first time I saw Jorah about to die, I'm like, this is it for Jorah.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, well, Jorah is not.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They need to kill a lot of people, and Jorah is not the most important one of them.
Same. I thought Jorah was probably going to die.
The sad thing is, he might be the biggest death of the episode as far as our heroes go.
Sorry, Ezen.
Don't say that.
And let's
don't forget our boy.
Oh yeah, fuck yeah. Never mind. I actually did a real sweet drawing of him today.
And you forgot. No, that's cool. Glad you did that.
Because I didn't want him to be dead. But I feel like, okay, we're shitting on this episode a lot, but I think the reason is it's no better to me than any other of the recent episodes of Game of Thrones. And the problem is, I mean, and I think that's why we're shitting on it so much, is because this is supposed to be a big deal, and it was just another episode. It
was an expensive episode.
It was an expensive episode. It was supposed to mean something. And it was just... Because, I mean, until the very, very end, I was having an all right time. I was like, this is okay. This is fine. This is a movie. Yeah,
I was too.
I hate that I have to be this optimistic about it, because, again, I feel like I liked the episode more than you guys, but to an extent of what we're going to get to again.
Yeah.
Let's get to it.
Yeah, let's get to it.
So, we're about 38 minutes in. Let's talk
get
about
to
the
Hit
ending.
Girl.
Let's get to Hit Girl. So... At the end of this episode, the Night King sort of just gets to Bran, because that's been the whole thing. Obviously, nothing is really gonna happen if the Night King kills Bran. It's just that
the idea.
Bran is supposed to be the bait for someone to get him, and then he gets to Bran. He kills Theon. Bran and the Night King are seemingly all alone. I mean, they're surrounded by Whites and White Walkers that should be forming an impenetrable barrier. But then Arya runs right by and gets the Night King, knife drop, shank to the stomach, and he's dead, and it's over.
Yeah.
It's awesome.
Literally, we joked, I feel like on our last podcast, that, oh yeah, Arya's gonna stab the Night King. People think that's gonna happen.
Yeah.
And we laughed.
Yeah, I think we did joke about that.
And it's just, it just deflated everything. Because I mean, I like dumb schlocky stuff. Like I like to just like watch action happen and it's fun and have a good time. But that's not why I watch Game of Thrones. And by having Arya kill the Night King, and I'm being the optimist and hoping maybe they'll give you something the next couple episodes. But as far as it stands now, it's just like, why? What does that mean? Like, what do I take away from Arya killing the Night King?
It's fucking sweet women power, man. What, you hate women?
No, because Sansa's the best.
You
so
do
no.
hate women. But that's not why this is bad. God, that was... I mean, I don't even care
Like,
anymore.
I think my favorite thing is... I think after the episode, Yazin, you said how, like, if Theon was the one that killed the Night King...
Should have been Theon.
Yeah, it would have been a nice, like, kind of, like
it would have been a good moment.
Yeah.
Well, I think, like, we were talking about it in a bar the other night, where, like, me and Yezin were talking about scenarios that would have been better, but we wouldn't have known it. Like, technically, Jon getting into a sword fight with the Night King and killing him probably would have at least, like, been better just because it's, like, it's stupid as hell, but Jon's story was kind of leading up to that.
And it would have been tension.
But we would have hated it.
Yeah.
I would have hated that if it happened.
It only would have been better in context to, like, what we got.
I would have hated that. I would have been like, it was the worst possible thing. But then, like, I didn't know.
Daenerys wiping him out with dragon fire. It's like, that would have been better. But we wouldn't have known that.
Yeah. It's kind of like Wonder Woman and Captain Marvel. It's like, oh, fuck, Wonder Woman. And then after watching Captain Marvel, it's like, that's pretty good.
Fuck yeah, Wonder Woman.
Yeah, that was a good movie.
That's a really good point.
Like,
I think that, so, with art, like, again, excuse me, I have, like, a lot of, like, stake in this whole White Walker thing. I have spent, like, years thinking about, how do they kill the Night King? What's a satisfying way to do that? And I never came up with one.
Yeah, but granted, you were never going to be satisfied, and so we were talking about that, like, a couple nights ago, where I was like, you don't know what you want, nothing is going to make you happy. Yeah. I don't see why stabbing him is any dumber than whatever, he's just going to die, it doesn't matter. And now I feel bad for you because, like, you got, like, the worst possible thing, the last thing in the world that you probably could have wanted. Where it's like, oh, sneak attack gets him.
Yeah, it's not just that, it's like, I think in context, like, if someone told me, like, oh, well, like, in context, again, this is just, like, my idea, but in context, like, watching that episode, like, before I thought, like, oh, well, it's gotta be about recognition and, accepting the humanity, and then, like, watching it, I'm like, okay, this episode is about facing death, alright? The Night King is death, it's about how everyone confronts, like, certain death. And you see that at the end. Like, Sansa and Tyrion have their moment. Jon sort of, like, screams at the dragon because he's like, I can't... He's sort of just, like, ready to go down...
Yelling?
Go down yelling against the dragon. He's, like, waiting for it to come at him so he can, like, slash it in the face. I don't know. Everyone sort of has that moment. So I think that, ideally, the best possible way to kill the Night King, given what we watched, would have been Theon. Because Theon is sort of... like, just so unremarkable as, like, a person. He's not especially strong. He's not a chosen one. He's not especially, like, good at fighting. But he's there, and he's facing, like, literal, like, death. He's facing the Night King, trying to be a good person, like, in the face of certain death. And so then you get that moment. Again, high point of the episode, high point...
Oh, yeah.
One of the high points of could have been one of the high points of the show for me. When Bran tells Theon, like... Theon, you're a good man. Thank you. Like, most, like, utilitarian possible use of dialogue.
From Bran? Really?
Right. But it communicates, and it's, I mean, not to get all Bran nerd on you guys, but it ties back to his last season conversation with Mira Reed, where he just told her thank you when she was leaving, and she gets mad at him because, like, she doesn't feel any gratitude from him. Like, this was the opposite. Like, he used the same words, but it was like absolution for Theon.
Yeah, you could tell it meant, like, the world to him.
It meant everything. Like, Theon stares at the Night King. He's terrified. And then Bran's like, hey, Theon, you're a good man. And then at that moment, Theon's like, fuck it, I'm a good man. And then he charges the Night King. And I'm like, that right there, you kill the Night King like that because like it doesn't need to be like about his special skills or anything. Like just do like I don't know, like Theon is doing his best just like everyone else. And if everyone else is going to face death and win, so does Theon. And I mean, idea how you do it. Maybe the Night King stabs Theon. Theon is hard to kill because he's been tortured so much.
Because he's Ironborn.
Yeah.
He's Ironborn. Also, he's
Those dead may never die.
Yeah, so he's fine.
He's been through so much, like...
Tries to kick him in the dick, and he just laughs at him.
I just think the idea... Okay, so, like, Night King stabs Theon. Theon drives himself further into the sword. Stabs the Night King. That's it.
Yeah.
Like, sort of like
just like Batman versus Superman.
Honestly, it could literally...
Yeah.
It could have even literally
why not?
played out the same way as Arya killing him, where he like drops a knife. It could literally have been the same scenario, just with Theon, and it would have been better.
Yeah.
Not because I don't like Arya, because honestly, I mean, for a while, I mean, I didn't love the character because of what they were doing with her with the assassin school shit.
Yeah.
But they were bringing her back, and I was actually really liking her. It has nothing to do with her character. It's because of her killing the Night King, as of it stands, means nothing to me. It doesn't say anything.
It's problematic because, like, again, for me, the problem with it is that Arya is just sort of like an anime character. She's like so good at So the idea is like, oh, well, how do we have this existential force of...
How do you stare death in the face? I'll try sneaking. That's
Death
a good
has
trick.
many faces.
Exactly. It's like a sneaking... It's like, how do you face this existential force of death? It's like...
Tricking it. Sneaking up on it.
Assassin training.
Yeah.
It's like
she flunked out of.
Like, bet you never... I mean, it's
She
fine.
didn't flunk out of. She quit.
She quit.
It's like...
Because she was going to
Bet
flunk out.
you thought... To me, it's like, whoa... Guess again, Night King. Thought you were gonna kill us. You didn't count on Faceless Man training. Whoa! Very cool.
Yeah.
Like, it was just this moment of like...
Why didn't... I mean... Fucking Arya could have just worn Bran's face, sat in the chair, and stabbed.
That's what I thought might have happened.
No, but like honestly, like that. I mean, I guess he knows what Bran is all the time.
I mean, it would have been better if Bran had the fucking dagger under his blanket and just like stabbed him or something. I don't care. Bran did nothing.
He had dragon glass legs.
Well, I thought it would have been better if out of fucking nowhere Bran just stands up.
Yeah.
Like that would have been, at least I'd be like, what the fuck does that mean? And I'd never know.
Yeah.
Like
he stands for something. He's not going to fall for anything.
Oh god.
Yeah. Like, I honestly, what I was hoping would happen was some sort of because again, Bran was a big letdown in this episode because I always felt, because I know you loved Bran.
Yeah.
But even Bran was bored this episode, so he warged into some birds so they didn't have to watch it.
I always wanted them to do something with Bran, and because I knew you'd always talk how important Bran is. Like, one of these days they're going to do something with him. They're going to do something. I thought this was his moment, and what does he do? Like Kyle said, wargs into some birds that are of no consequence. He doesn't
He doesn't tell
anyone what he saw.
Yeah.
It's just hey, he's gonna go into some birds for a second.
The only way to interpret the story as Bran did anything is if you assume that Bran is the Lord of Light, which has been my theory for a while. Basically, Bran has behind the scenes orchestrated everything, including Melisandre, including Arya showing up. He knew it was all going to happen that way. But again, that's not good. That doesn't make it. It's you can't.
Interesting to watch.
You can't just say oh well, he didn't do anything, but maybe he did everything. That's.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of silly.
Self-insertion of the writer to the highest degree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's. I think that you need Bran needed to do something. I mean, not to sound not to get overly here's my idea. I think it would have been fine if instead of Arya showing up, again, Theon charges him, gets knocked down, or something like that. Night King comes to get Bran. Theon gets back up, tries to attack the Night King. Bran grabs the Night King's hand and tries to mind power him to stop just enough time for Theon to kill him,
Well,
and then the Theon dies, and then
Tub Thumping plays on the end credits.
Tub thumping.
I don't know what
I
that
get
is.
knocked down, and I get
Yeah.
up again.
Chumbawamba, yeah. No,
Oh, okay.
I really felt like it needed more of a confrontation between the Night King and Bran, aside from them just kind of like looking at each other for
Oh,
a
God,
second
yeah.
while he's like slowly pulling out his dagger.
No, it's all implied. It's so deep. They don't have to say a word.
Yeah.
And again, to an extent, I do like how there's like those moments of silence where it's like there's no dialogue. They cut back on like the sound effects and it's just sort of the music taking
Yeah,
over.
sure.
And like that's really good, but then it doesn't bring it
Yeah.
home. We don't get the like the necessary consequence to justify that.
Yeah.
Because it's hard for, like, honestly, it's funny because there's a lot of things I hate in this episode that I usually, I like in, say, The Last Jedi. Like, there's things, that I'll, praise that movie for, where, this, I'm like, no, what, why are you... I don't know.
Last Jedi had a better final confrontation.
Because, it got rid of, Snoke real quick, and it's
Snoke
why
versus
did...
Snoke.
That's not the final confrontation.
No.
Okay, Luke and Kylo Ren.
That's still better than
You think
this shit.
it's better than you think Arya jumping and killing the Night King is better?
I don't know, man. I really hate when the Millennium Falcon showed. This isn't about the Last Jedi. This isn't about the Last
Whatever.
Jedi.
Okay,
Yeah.
so I mean,
To be clear, one thing I just have to say real quick. Ryan Johnson had a really funny tweet. He was like, "Oh no, all my Night King theories."
that is funny.
That's hilarious. That is so good.
So another thing that in the inside the episode, this is probably the most infuriating inside the episode to ever watch because it makes it clear just how much they're letting the fans write the show for them and just how much they're So when they're talking about how, again, I'm not gonna be a book nerd here for it. I'm trying not to be too much of a book nerd, but they talk about how we've known for 3 years that it was gonna be Arya. We considered doing Jon. It just didn't feel right for this moment.
Once our fans really started telling us, hey, don't kill Arya, she's my favorite character, we knew this was right for her story.
It's annoying because one, it makes it heavily implies that this is not from the books, which is kind of self-explanatory. There is no Night King in the books, and that's not inherently bad just because there's something. But it bothers me especially because it lets me know that there is another story that this is based off of that isn't this, but we really wanted to do this, so we made it this. And I'm like, why? This is not good.
Because
I'm not saying that the book's necessarily perfect, but I'm sure it has to be better than this.
Well, during the episode, Dan, you kept saying, they wrote themselves into a corner. It's well, don't write yourself... they invented the Night King.
Well, that was the thing. It's oh, they wrote themselves into a corner. It's there's you guys are the ones that wrote it. It's very easy to not do it. Don't write it that way.
They created the Night King.
It feels like they just took the easiest, cop-out writing technique to get out of the situation and to appease, the surface-level fans by just turning, Arya into this, cure-all for, the script. How to get out of the situation. Oh, Arya will just pop out of the shadows and kill them. Even when, she killed the Freys and stuff, the other season, I was kind of annoyed by that. It's just, I get it, we're tying up loose ends and stuff, and, that's kind of, annoying how she's just able to fucking do anything. And this solidifies the fact that it's fuck it, we can have her do anything when we just want to write ourselves out of the situation.
Yeah, just when it started to feel like Arya was becoming a character and a person again, they do that. Don't get me wrong, I feel like I'm maybe the least upset that Arya is the one that killed the Night King, but...
Interesting.
It's stupid.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing. If you're going to have a Deus Ex Machina in your show, have it be Bran. It makes sense.
It makes more
sense. It makes more sense.
I think
don't have Arya be your
there are a lot of characters that it makes more sense for, at
or
least
even Jon.
Daenerys.
Makes more sense with Jon, Daenerys, or Bran, or Theon.
I think Theon. That's not a Deus Ex Machina. I think having Theon do it. I don't know. I don't know. But given the situation they wrote, Theon doing it in that moment would have been perfect. I'd never come up with an idea for how to kill the Night King that would have been that I thought would have been right. But when I watched that, I'm like, that would be right.
Yeah, because it felt right. Because like you said, you've been thinking about this for years, and in that moment, what they wrote, it was whenever Theon was charging at him, I was this is right. I would have been satisfied with that. And I'm watching. And I don't know if years before I could have said oh, if someone told me their idea, I was I don't know if I would be satisfied with that.
Yeah, but when you watch it, it's to me, I'm this makes sense. But
They were so
to
close.
me, it's just like they were like, well, we have to pick a fan favorite.
Yeah, you got to remember that like a lot of people don't like Theon.
Yeah, and that's
So then they would have been mad. You kidding me? Theon Dinklage Greyjoy killed the Night King?
That's
unsubscribe.
Yeah, like it just it felt that moment just felt so right, and I feel like that's what makes me like even like more upset.
I'm gonna be honest,
like they
though,
were so close.
Exactly what I expected to happen there happened there though. So I mean, like,
Theon, you mean the way Theon died?
Oh yeah,
I looking back on it, seeing what happened, I'm like, you know what, that would have been better. But I also think so. Like when I was listening to the inside the episode, when they're talking about like, oh, we thought about having Jon do it, we thought about having it just makes it clear how like sort of like
we thought about following story structure, but then we thought, what do the fans want?
okay, so I remember what I was going for. So like they also mentioned like, and you know, there's so much happening in the episode, so we hope that you would forget that Arya had like walked off earlier and we didn't see where she was, and I realized like honestly before Theon did his thing, like I actually like remembered that we hadn't seen Arya for a while, and it was like I was like, oh no, it kind of because here's the thing, a lot of people are on the internet going like, this is bad because it's not set up. I actually disagree.
No, it is set up. It is set up,
but it's just stupid. The setup is
I told you 3 years ago that you would close blue eyes.
Yeah, exactly. The idea like, oh, I told you that you close blue. I mean, that when they did it, they didn't know. They said 3 years.
Yeah, of course they fucking didn't.
But no, like a lot of people were saying like, but the dagger, Bran gave it to her, and then later it was in Sam's book, so we knew the dagger was important. And I'm like, that's set up, but it's not necessarily, it's not meaningful setup.
Yeah.
There was a scribble of Arya next to the dagger in the book if you look closer.
Yeah, like that's the, like it's not, for me it's not about setup. Like a lot of people say like, oh no, but it's set up for Jon to find him, set up for Arya. It's like, okay. It's like setup isn't what matters. What matters to me is like meaning. Yeah. And this wasn't very meaningful. And like when I'm watching the inside of the episode, like D&D say like, oh, we hope that you would forget about
I didn't
that moment. And it's like, well, here's the thing, is like the problem is that like it reminds me of what they said about Littlefinger's death, where they talk about, oh, so much of that scene is about the twist, and it's like you're writing around twists now.
Yeah.
It's like a good way to kill the Night King shouldn't require you to have forgotten that you haven't seen Arya. It should be good even if you know it's coming. You know what I mean? Like,
it just needs to feel earned.
Yeah.
And it did.
With Luke Skywalker, like when he casts aside his lightsaber and says, "I won't kill Vader," it's not like we think you would forget that Luke forgot that it's possible to do that. It's like, no, it's good because of what it means. Like with this, it's like it's good. We hope it's good. We hope we succeeded in making you not think about Arya, so that it'll be good when she shows up. It's like that's not what makes something good, and it's the same with the Littlefinger assassination. It's like murder or execution. It's like it should be good if you don't know it's coming.
Yeah.
Anyway, that's just closing thoughts. Yeah. Let's wrap this up.
The episode wasn't as bad as we're all making it out to be. It was just really disappointing.
Yeah.
You're right.
Yeah. I mean, like, this thing, like, I don't watch, like, Game of Thrones for the spectacle. I watch it because, like, it's interesting things happen and they mean something. Like, I mean, look at the Red Wedding. Like, that's not even one, like, a lot of people love that. Not one of my favorite moments in the show, because I'm not a huge Rob fan.
You're not a fan of pregnant women being stabbed to death?
But, like, that was shocking not because... yes, there was a twist, but it meant something. Like Yezin was saying, it meant something.
And also, like that. That's also good. Not just there's a twist that feels really earned in like a it's like a negative twist, but it feels earned. It's not. We hope you forgot. It's like no, it's not like even if you knew it was coming, it sucks. It's a horrible thing.
Yeah, like I knew this was going to happen whenever they passed the books, and it's like, this is just all my worst fears. Like, as soon as they passed the books, the quality dropped because before you had, like, I hate to say it, but, like, lesser writers just kind of watering down a better writer, and now you just have lesser writers. and they're watering down what the fans
I think
want,
at the end of the
apparently.
day is now it's just turned into a TV show.
Yeah.
It's not, this, epic tale. It's been, tirelessly researched, thought out, planned meticulously, tied together thematically, logically, sensibly.
Taken way too long to write.
Again, I understand it's a TV show. There's limitations, there's expectations, all those things to meet. But a lot of this is not what made me fall in love with this series.
Yeah.
And this is, I'm not gonna lie, the start of this episode had me kind of leaning forward in my chair, excited, engaged, and that lasted for the most of the episode. And even coming back to what I said earlier, things that were dumb, I had nitpicks, but they felt more like nitpicks.
Yeah.
But it wasn't until that final moment where it turned that corner from being a nitpick to just now this is just back to something I'm watching for the fun of it.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Because, you could, I was sitting next to Kyle, you could ask him, heck, I was with you guys. I was oohing and ahhing at the beginning of the show. I was gasping. But then, again, as soon as Arya showed up, I was literally, they broke the show. Yeah. The shows might be ruined. I don't know. They might be able to save it. I don't know. Maybe. The show's not over yet. I'm hopeful. I'm trying to be optimistic, because I try to be an optimist, but it just doesn't feel right. And it hasn't ever since they passed the books.
Yeah. I agree with Kyle that it's not as bad as we're making it out. The episode isn't as bad as we're making it out to be. But I think that what the episode did for the entire show is as bad as we're making it out to be. Yeah. For me, it's as an individual episode, no, there are good moments. That Theon's, I'm not gonna lie, I've watched that scene maybe 10 times.
It's a great scene.
It's a great scene. I almost cried when I was watching it. It was great. I think there are good moments in the episode. There are good lines from Sansa, from Tyrion, from Bran, from
even the Hound. We didn't mention the Hound once this episode.
Yeah, the Hound was good.
Even how they treat his character for probably the first 2/3, half of the episode, I really enjoy.
Yeah,
but ultimately, there are good stuff about the episode, and there are parts of it where it's very engaging.
Yeah,
but ultimately, the episode had such big shoes to fill. And it has such a responsibility to give everything that came before it meaning and weight and value that by failing to do those things, it does something worse than it's worse than a bad hour of television. It's an hour of television, or an 80-minute segment of television that actually ruins other parts of the story.
Yeah, yeah. It deflates so much.
Yeah, and it's the first time in a while that I've really been because for a while I was resigned myself, all right, I don't need the books. The D&D's gonna tell me and I'll be able to figure it out. But now I'm yeah, I need the books.
Yeah,
and I'm not gonna get them.
Honestly, I almost watch Game of Thrones I hope it's good for you, yes, because I'm never I've never been the biggest fan. I enjoy watching Game of Thrones a lot, but I'm not obsessed with it.
Yeah,
but I want it to be good for you.
That's
so
really
bad,
sweet, Michael.
That's unnecessary.
That's why
we all had to watch it.
That's why I don't want you to be the one that kills me. Anyway, now we're going to talk about Endgame. Endgame was better.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah.
Tune into our next exciting episode of WolfPunch, where we discuss the new Avengers movie.
Yeah, you make it sound like we're about to make it.
Yeah, no, it's going to be in our next episode.
In a different thing.
In a different thing, we're going to talk about Endgame.
Like and subscribe.
Yeah.
Love you.
WolfPunch.